Hello, hello. I can see a couple of you are just hopping on and joining me. Just getting everything set up, so hopefully you can see what I'm doing properly and I can see what I'm doing properly. Let's get this wire out of the way. How are we all today? Beautiful day, isn't it? Not what I was expecting at all, because all week it's going to rain, it's going to be nice, it's going to rain, it's going to be nice. And thankfully it's really lovely. So time for a bit of crafting and then let's get outside, I reckon. Just going to click this open so I can see any comments. Hi Tracy, hi Diane, hi Kim, just trying to see who else we've got there. Hi Jeanette, hi Babsy. Lovely to see you all, I hope you're all well. Just going to move over ever so slightly, because now I've put my screen up, it looks as if everything's a little bit on the wonk. Anyway, I'm sure we'll manage. So we just leave it sort of another minute to see how anybody else is joining us. Hi Linda, hello Michelle, thanks for joining us again. Us, well me, and all of you, it's lovely. Hi Linda, beautiful morning, isn't it? Well, I suppose, is it afternoon now? Now we're past 12 o'clock. So has anyone got any nice plans today after we've done crafting? It should have been the carnival in Brackley today. So we're going to be having a bit of a sort of a street party, socially distanced of course, in our front gardens, and one of the neighbours has done a bit of a music quiz for us, I think. Hi Claire, nice to see you, hope you're well. Hello Kim Price, nice to see you too. Welcome, welcome. So yeah, we've got a bit of a street party this afternoon with a bit of a quiz and stuff, a music quiz, so I'm sure there'll be a few little beverages and things going on, so should be kind of nice. Hi Catherine, nice to see you. Hope you're all well in your house. So we're 12:01, so I like to keep things on time, so I'm going to get started. So this week then we're going to make a gift box for all of the cards that we made last week. So because I thought that because it was a really nice set of cards, it would be a really lovely gift you could give to somebody. Now I haven't got a finished one to show you yet. Hi Rachel, thanks for joining us. Hi Christine, hi Vicky. So I haven't got a finished one to show you. I've just got my prototype, which is just plain white and boring, and the one that we make today is going to be much prettier than this. But as you can see, the set of note cards and envelopes that we made last week fit really nicely in there. So this is the prototype that I just mocked up, and we're going to make a nice pretty one today. Now I've got another giveaway this week actually. I have got, sorry, just knocked the stand. I have got an embossing folder. It's the Subtle 3D embossing folder. It gives a really lovely texture to projects. It can kind of make things look a bit watercoloured. I see you've done them on watercolour paper if you haven't. Hi CJ, thank you for joining us today. Lovely to see you. Hope you are well. So at the end of today's Craft Along Live, I'm going to put a post up a bit like I did last week, where you can all share your finished boxes, or you can share some of your finished cards again. That's absolutely fine, either or, I really don't mind. And then I'll select somebody at random. I probably won't do it till this evening though, because of the fact we're having a bit of a street party today. So I'll do that this evening, and then I will select somebody to win this 3D embossing folder. So this is something that you will need a die cutting machine for. To use it, but obviously if you know, you can always even gift it on to somebody else if you want to. That's entirely up to you, but that's what I'm going to do a little giveaway for today. So I'm going to be using the beautiful friendship stamp set again, which is the one that I used last week for all my cards, because I want the theme on the outside of my box to match what's going on the inside of my box. So I don't know if you remember, but when I did my cards, I used, if I get one that shows some of the cardstock, I used some Coastal Cabana cardstock last week, this nice sort of bluey green colour, so aqua sort of colour. So I'm going to use that for the lid of my box, and I'm going to use some white cardstock for the base of my box. So I think, like I explained last week, Stampin' Up do 2 thicknesses of cardstock. They do a thick Whisper White, which is what I use for construction purposes. Then they use a standard Whisper White. Now obviously on camera they look no different, but to me I can feel the difference. So I've got a sheet of stamping card, if you like, because that's going to be to decorate the lid of the box. I've got a sheet of card for my base, and I've got a sheet of coloured card for my lid. Okay, and I've got a spare one out just in case I go wrong, because you never know, do you? It's always good to have a bit of a practice. Now, how do we work out what size boxes we want? So I'll show you how I do it, okay? And it's a real simplistic little method, because this type of lidded box is just about, cardstock's fallen on the floor now. This kind of lidded box is just about the simplest box you can make, and you can pretty much make it in any size depending on your cardstock. Oh, thank you, Kim, that's really nice of you. So what I do is I'll draw myself a little rectangle, and for instance, let's have a look with this box. I wanted this box. Now last week I was all centimetres, wasn't I? This week I'm going to go in inches. I wanted this box to measure 5 by 7 inches, so that it was just a bit bigger than my card and envelope, because I didn't want it to be all squashed up in there. Okay, so I drew myself a rectangle and I marked 5 by 7, and then I worked out how deep I wanted my box to be, and I wanted it to be 1.5 inches deep. Okay, so I'm going to need 1.5 that side, 1.5 that side, 1.5 that side, and 1.5 that side. So across this way it's going to be 7 plus 1.5 plus 1.5, and that equals 10 inches. Hope you're all keeping up so far. Then down this way, oh, I've done that the wrong way round, haven't I? Oh, honestly, I'm such an idiot. that's going the length. To do the width, okay, I needed it to be 5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5. So 5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5 equals 8 inches. So that means the piece of cardstock that I need. Oh, hiya, Jane. Oh, brilliant. I'm glad you can hear me now. Hope everyone else can hear me okay. So then I need to cut a piece of cardstock that's 10 inches by 8 inches, and I'm going to score it at 1.5 on all 4 sides. So I hope that sort of makes sense to people. If I just perhaps give you another example, I'll perhaps just give you an example of maybe a smaller one. I'll do it over this side. So let's say we wanted a box that was going to be 3 inches by 4 inches wide, and we wanted it to be 1 inch deep. Okay, so for the length of the box we'd need it to be 4 plus 1 plus 1. So we'd need it to be 6 inches for the length, okay? And for the width, we'd want it to be 3 inches plus 1 plus 1. So it would be, the piece of cardstock we would need would be 5 inches wide, okay? So there we go. Now today's measurements, I haven't created a little file yet, but I will put them on, I will put it on in a bit. Just had a silly little message come out of the way. I'm just going to get that out of the way so I can see you. Hi Janice, hi Isabel, lovely to see you today. Hope you're all doing well. I know Janice is okay because Janice is at my house, because now we're allowed somebody in our bubble. Janice lived alone, so Janice has joined our bubble. Okay, so let's crack on, shall we? So for the base of the box, for this particular box, I need a piece of cardstock that's 10 inches by 8 inches. Okay, so if I get the piece of cardstock that fell on the floor. Okay, so I'm going to need to pull out the arm of my trimmer because 8 and 10 inches are both over there. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it down to 8 inches. So I'm going to line it up in portrait, so with the short edge at the top, and I'm going to trim that down to 8 inches. Hi Eels, nice for you to join us. How's the weather over in the Netherlands? We're bright and sunny here in the UK today, I'm happy to report, which makes a nice change. So if you hear any kind of buzzing in the background, the whole street seems to be cutting their grass today. So we've done our 8 inches. Now we turn our cardstock onto the landscape side, onto the long side, and we're going to trim that to 10 inches. Okay, so that's a piece of spare. Oh, okay, Isabel, you've got a busy day planned. It's lovely to see you here anyway, and you can always watch later on catch up if you fancy having a go at what we're doing. We're making a box today to go with the cards we made last week. So that's the piece of card for our base. I'm now also going to trim up the piece of card for the lid. Now the lid, if I put these on their sides, so you can see I've done the base taller than the lid. And that's because I wanted to be able to get my fingers under the lid to get it off. So whilst the base is 1.5 inches deep, the lid is only 1 inch deep. So for the lid, we want a piece of cardstock that measures 7 inches wide this time. So on the in portrait on the short side, I'm going to trim my piece of coloured cardstock down to 7 inches. Oh, hi Molly, really lovely to see you. Oh, and Bob Shirley's back. Where are the Maltesers, Bob? Still haven't got any Maltesers. And then on the long side, so with the long side in landscape, I need to trim this piece of card to 9 inches. Okay, so now we should have 2 pieces of card. The base card is 10 by 8 inches, and the coloured card for the lid is slightly smaller at 7 by 9 inches. Okay, so that's the cutting that we need to do for our box. Now we're going to do the scoring. So there are different ways to score. You can do it on a scoreboard, you can do it on a trimmer like this that has a score blade, you can do it with a ruler and a stylus. There are lots of different ways that you can do it. Okay, so with the we'll start with the base, and on the Stampin' Up style trimmers, I can't talk for any other trimmers you might have at home, but this lighter colour blade is the scoring blade. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to trim at 1.5 inches on all 4 sides. Okay, so we did some scoring last week, didn't we, to make our card bases. This week we're just going to do a little bit more of that. So I'm going to line my cardstock up at 1.5 inches, just there, right on the line there, and I'm going to run my score blade backwards and forwards. Then I'm going to turn it round, and I'm going to do the same on all 4 sides, making sure that I've lined it up at the top to get a nice square corner on my box. So all the way round, 1.5 inches, and then on the 4th side, 1.5 inches. Okay, so I've now got 4 score lines that go on each side of what will become the base of my box. Okay, so the next bit of scoring we're going to do is we're now going to score the lid, but we score the lid at slightly different measurements. We're going to score the lid at 1 inch all the way round, because remember, I want my lid to be shallower than my base, so that when it goes on, I can easily get it off. Okay, so with this one, we're going to score at 1 inch on all 4 sides. With my Stampin' Up trimmer, I think I said last week, we've got these little measurements over on this side, and I prefer those for smaller measurements. So I'm going to line up my 1 inch on this side this time rather than the other side. It just means the card is a little bit easier to balance, so to speak. Okay, so at 1 inch. But now what I'm going to do, because it's a lid, a little trick with lids, just to make sure lids fit really, really well, is to literally come like a fly's eyelash, shorter than the measurement. Okay, not longer, but shorter. If you do a fly's eyelash shorter on all 4 sides, you'll end up with a lid that fits really, really well. Oh, CJ said it's grained pressing up there in the north of Scotland. Oh, but the postie bought her a magazine and some stamps. Fantastic. Enjoy playing with those, CJ. So remember, fly's eyelash shorter than 1 inch, and we're going to do that on all 4 sides. So again, turn it round, line it up to the 1, bring it back a fly's eyelash. Do flies even have eyelashes? Can somebody tell me? I do not know this. So again, line it up, fly's eyelash shorter, and again on the 4th side, we're going to line it up, fly's eyelash shorter. There we go. So I've now got my lid, which is also scored on all 4 sides. Now the next thing we do in paper crafting terms is we burnish our score lines to make sure we've got nice creased lines. There's a tool called a bone folder that you can use for this, but there's also your fingers. You know, they work perfectly well. So we turn our score lines over, and like I said, you can press them nice and firmly with a finger, or you can use a bone folder if you have one to hand. And I'm going to score all of the lines that I've just scored with my trimmer. Sorry, burnish. I've already scored them. I'm burnishing all these lines to make sure that I get nice crisp edges for my box. So I've done that for the lid, and I'm now going to do exactly the same for the base. So as I said, you can run it nice and firmly with your finger, or you can use the tools created for the job if you happen to have them to hand, which I know some of you will have, because you've got craft rooms that are stocked just about as well as mine. Okay, so to put the box together, it's the simplest thing going, and you do exactly the same on the top and the bottom. Okay, so what we do, hopefully you can see this really well, is we've got our square in the corner, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut straight up the rectangle, so straight up between the square and the rectangle. Then we're going to notch out of the square on both sides a little bit. Okay, so you end up with, if I lay it over the coloured card, you end up with a corner piece that looks like that. So we've gone straight up the rectangle and we've notched in the square, and then I turn it 90 degrees and I do exactly the same. So I'm going straight up the rectangle and I'm notching into the square. And this method that I'm showing you is the method that you can use for every type of lidded box. So it's all you need to do is just adjust the measurements to fit what you want to pop inside it. You know, you might want to put some candles in there, or some sweeties, or you know, a little kind of paperweight or something, a gift, or maybe some nice handmade soaps or something. So you just need to adjust it for your size. So I'm going to carry on going round. So all four. So CJ's just commented that you can use a small circle punch to cut a little notch in your lid if you want to help it a little bit, to make it easier to get the lid off. So I'm just going round again, all four sides, straight up the rectangles and notch out the squares. Okay, so I've now done that on all four corners of my base. I'm going to repeat exactly the same thing on my lid. So, sorry, just a quick check of comments. So exactly the same for the lid. I'm going to go up the rectangle and just notch a little bit into those squares. So up the rectangle into the squares, and we do that on all four corners. All four corners of the lid, all four corners of the box. And this is what makes this type of box construction really straightforward, because you just repeat the same steps for the lid as you do the base. You just need to adjust the measurements to fit your project. Okay, so there are various ways you can stick this together. Obviously you can stick it together with wet glue, you can stick it together with tape runner, you can stick it together with tape. I'm going to, because it's the glue that most people have access to, I'm going to stick mine together with wet glue today. But that does mean it just takes a little bit of time to grab. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scribble a little bit of glue over the tab. Okay, so I've put it on the inside of the tab, so the box is going to come up like this, and I've put the adhesive on the inside of that tab. Okay, now that comes up there, and what we do is we join up what we call the straight edge and the open edge to make a nice neat corner on our box. Okay, and then we just need to hold that for a few seconds to let the glue grab. Oh, hiya Baz, hello Ruth, nice of you to join us on this lovely sunny day. Just in the process of putting the box together. So we want a little bit more glue, and I'm doing this a little bit cack-handed for camera, but you could do it all laid flat down. So again, a little bit of glue on the tab that's going to become on the inside, I take that edge up to that edge, make a nice corner, then I just hold it for a few seconds. The thing about wet glue is you do have to hold it for a few seconds, but it does ultimately make a very, very strong seal. Hiya Baz, lovely to see you, hope you're well. So, still waiting for my curry, by the way, it hasn't arrived. I think it must have got lost in the post. Okay, so on the the third tab. So there we go, we're just going to repeat the same steps. We put our glue on and we give that a little pinch to hold that closed. Baz is making another curry this weekend. Perhaps she'll treat us all this weekend and send us a sample. And then finally a little bit of glue on my final tab, and obviously this one you've got to just sort of poke it inside there, and then we stick that down. So the reason we take our tabs off is so that nothing pokes out the top of the box that shouldn't be, and we end up with a nice neat finished box. Okay, I haven't decorated the base of this box, but we certainly could if you wanted to. We will be decorating the top though. Okay, so that's the base now finished, and if I just remove the cards from my sample box, you will see that they all fit in there lovely. There's a little bit of space, so they're easy to get out without damaging them. So I'll put that to one side. Oh, Baz has said she'll come and make curry at my house one day. You're lovely, Baz. That'd be fantastic. Thank you. So we're now on to our lid. Okay, so I've got my score lines and my sides ready to make the side of this box. So again, little bit of glue, little bit of wet glue. Actually, I suppose you can see it a bit easier on this coloured card, can't you? And then I lift up the corner and then I pinch it and hold it in place. And we just hold that a few seconds for the ink to grab. I'm hoping to see my granddaughter as well today. I haven't seen her since before the lockdown. Her mum was going to bring her over sort of about now, and then I realised I was doing the live. So hopefully they're going to come over a little bit later this afternoon, see them in the garden, because, oh, it's missed them. It's been so long. Okay, and now we're going to carry round doing the rest of the tabs for the lid. Now, something that I do sometimes, just to make sure, yes, Bob, I do, if you're listening, is sometimes I put the base of the box inside the lid when I'm putting my tabs together to ensure that there's definitely going to be enough space to get the lid on the box. So that's another little tip for you to do. So if I do it on this corner here, so this tab's ultimately going to go inside, so I'll put my glue on. And then I will close the lid of my box around the base of my box, and then I know for sure that that lid is going to fit really, really well on the lid. Sorry, on the base. Oh, Baz was a bit ahead of herself today. She came looking for us at 11 o'clock. No, Baz, I know what I'm like on the weekends. 12 o'clock's going to be about the earliest, really. Apart from when we do Let's Get Creative events, then I can manage to get up earlier. It's all the excitement. But standard weekends, no, I like to take it a bit easy. Okay, so we're now on our final corner, look. So we've got our final corner. So I'm going to carefully tuck that tab inside. And I'm wrapping it around the base of my box so I know that it will fit. And also that I'll get a nice snug fit. So it's not too loose. But the little trick of measuring it a fly's eyelash shorter than the 1 inch is also enough to ensure that the lid of our box will fit beautifully. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a minute now and just going to wait for some feedback and see how you're all doing. Have you managed to get to the same position that I'm in? Have we now got a lid on our box? So we've got our cards inside from last week, and we've got a nice snug fitting lid on our box. And there we go, we've got an edge on it there so that we're able to easily take it off. So I'll just hang fire, wait until we get a bit of feedback just to see if you're all at the same place before we get around to decorating the top. Is anybody there? Oh, Baz still needs to make the cards from last week. Oh, of course, Baz, you were busy cooking though, weren't you? So you couldn't keep up at the time. So just for anyone who was a little bit later joining, I'm doing a giveaway this week as well. And this week I've got the Subtle 3D embossing folder. Oh, Molly's just arrived and would like the measurements. So Molly, the measurements for the base, and I will put these in a file on there. The measurements for the base, you need a piece of cardstock that's 10 inches by 8 inches. And you score it at 1.5 inches on all 4 sides. So Kim's good, Jane's good, Michelle's good. This is fantastic. Well done, ladies. For the lid, Molly, you need a piece of cardstock that is 7 inches by 9 inches, and you score it at 1 inch on all 4 sides. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to do a giveaway again, similar to I did last week. So if you share your finished boxes and or your finished cards, brilliant. Yeah, Diane's done it as well. Fantastic. So if you share your finished box and or cards on the post that I'm going to put on after this live is finished, I'll put you in a random draw to win this, and it's brand new, not been opened, Subtle 3D embossing folder. Okay, so that's going to be today's giveaway. So it seems that we have some finished boxes. Oh, so Linda's just going to have another little go to get the sizes a bit better. Right, lovely. So, okay, I'm going to carry on then. So we want to make a panel now to decorate the top of this box. So I think I said earlier, but the finished size of the box is 5 inches by 7 inches by 1.5 inches. So it's quite a big panel at the top, much bigger than a normal card front. So I think I'm going to leave quite a nice border on this. So I think I'm going to cut my layer at 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches, and that's going to give me a nice border all the way round. So now I'll get my trimmer out again, and I need a piece of card for doing some stamping on. So I've got a piece of my standard cardstock here, and I'm going to cut this piece of card at, I said 4.5, didn't I? So I'm going to cut it down 4.5 inches. Then I'm going to turn it round and I'm going to cut it at 6.5. So I need to open up my arm again because the 6.5 is just there. So I'm going to cut that at 6.5 inches. Okay, so if I show you that piece of cardstock now, you will see that that fits on the lid with a nice border all the way around it. So I thought this would be a nice way of decorating the outside of the box. We can show everybody a little hint of what's on the inside of the box. There is another way we can do this. We could also do a die cut window to show the contents of the box, and I'll do that afterwards if anybody wants to hang around and see that. But this was my initial idea, but then I thought afterwards, oh, we could probably do a die cut window with a little bit of folding and messing around for those people who've got dies and things. But if you haven't, then that's why I went for this first, for people that haven't necessarily got all the equipment. Okay, so I've got all my stamps ready again, and I've got the inks to hand that I used last time. So I use the Brights colours, and I'm just going to get one of my cards out as an example so I can follow sort of the same colour scheme, because I want it to mirror what's on the inside. So I need to start with Flirty Flamingo for my nice big double rose image. And obviously you can decorate the top of this however you want to. I'm thinking about not putting a sentiment on it, because then the recipient could then potentially use it as a gift box for something else. So I think I'm going to leave mine blank. I'm just going to decorate with some nice pretty floral images, and I think I'm going to aim to go for it to cover my box landscape. Sorry, portrait, this way round. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my Flirty Flamingo and my big sort of rose image. Now, in terms of composition for the front of this card, you can do exactly what you want. You can do it one sheet wonder style, or you can do it a little bit less is more style. It's entirely up to you. I haven't actually decided what I'm going to do. I'm doing a Tara Fowler. I'm winging it. Okay, so I think I'd like some more of these flowers going across there. Oh dear, that one didn't quite stamp. Right, excuse my head. I'm going to have to get my head back in and try and go back over and stamp the middle of that. Oh, that one didn't want to stamp very well, did it? I'm going to ink it again. Do you know what? That's the practice side. I'm going to turn it over. This is the real side now. That was just a practice side. Maybe I hadn't inked things up properly. So let's try again. So I'm going to give that a good press in the middle of that flower because it obviously doesn't want to stamp particularly well this week. Didn't give me any problems last week. That's better. Oh yeah, nice idea, Baz. Baz has suggested we could put a small tag in the box so that it could be regifted. That's a really good idea. Thank you for sharing that with us. And then again, I'm going to give this a good press in the middle because my stamps decided it didn't. No, it's a bit paler again this time. Oh, well, never mind, not to worry. I've got my stamping chamois here. So this is what I use for cleaning my stamps. They do get stained, but it is just stain. It's just because the ink is dye based and it dyes things. Okay, so I think I'll leave that one there for now. Close the ink pad just so I don't make a mess. Now I'm going to go for my gorgeous grape, which is what I did my flowers in on my original design. And I'm going to squeeze a couple of those in here and there. Let's have another one just going off the edge up there. So that's that one. Clean my stamp. I'm going to go in with, oh, I used the bright pink, didn't I? The Melon Mambo. I used the bright pink to do the centre of my flowers. Yeah, Baz has asked if I need a cushion under my stamping. I think because my grid paper, I'm down to the last couple of pages. So sometimes, certainly with big photopolymer stamps like this, sometimes it's helpful to have like a foam mat underneath where you stamp because it just gives that extra bit of cushioning for the stamp. So thank you, Baz, for the tip. But I think I'm going to get away with it because I've still got to stamp my flower centres in. So I think that will pretty much take it away from there. So yeah, I think I've got away with it this time. Lucky. And I'm going to pop something in Coastal Cabana to tie in with the fact that's the colour that I'm using around the outside. So I'm going to use this sort of little pair of budding flowers. They're nice and pretty. I like these. We'll perhaps have them popping off the edge there and popping off the edge there. Yes, that's nice. I'm liking that. So basically, when you look at something you're creating, if it looks right, it is right. You know, don't fuss about it too much. It's handmade, it's lovely, and the person who receives it is going to absolutely love it regardless. You know, who wouldn't? A lovely box with some handmade cards in that you can then give to other people. Fantastic. So I'm now going to add some leaves with my nice bright granny apple green. I do love this green, I have to admit. So I'm just going to pop some leaf clusters in where I think they might work. Okay. And you know what? I think I'm actually going to leave mine just there. You may still be stamping, so please be my guest. Something I'm going to do whilst you're perhaps finishing your stamping is I'm going to fix a little mistake that I've got. It's only a tiny one, but I don't know if you can see, I caught a little bit of ink on the edge of my block, so I've got a little tiny line of ink there that shouldn't really be there. So this is where the magic happens. If you go on Amazon, you can get something called a sand eraser. You may be able to buy them in places like Hobbycraft. Obviously, a lot of places aren't open at the moment. So a Tombow Mono eraser, and it's basically a sandy kind of eraser. It was a bit like the ones we had as kids that promised you it would rub out pen and never did. Well, anyway, these are the real McCoy, and these will actually rub things out. So what I'm going to do is you just gently rub this on your cardstock, and it very slowly sands away the top layer of your cardstock, and it will get rid of that smudge. You have to be patient with it, and you have to go in layer after layer, getting rid of your little bits and pieces, but ultimately it will get rid of these little smudges. Now if you plonked a whole stamp on there mistakenly, it won't get rid of that for you, but it will certainly get rid of some of these little ink smudges like this. So I would say if you are a paper crafter, if you don't own one of these, get yourself one, if you're going to become a paper crafter, get yourself one of these as one of your starter items. And also something you can get from Amazon is an adhesive eraser. So if you get a spot of glue where you don't want it, this thing is magic and it will rub that away. So I'm just going to do a little bit more rubbing. So it's definitely lightening off now. Having a bit of trouble with my words today. Where I'm rubbing away with my sand eraser. And then if you go over the top then with a normal eraser, so I've just got one here that's attached with a pencil sharpener, it just sort of helps smooth the card. So I think you can see now it's still ever so faintly visible, but it's much, much better than it was. And I'm sure the person who receives this will not even notice anyway. Okay, so have we... Oh, hi Val, nice to see you, hope you're well. So I've just finished decorating the top panel. So we made our cards last week. We've made a gift box this week to hold the cards so that we can gift these away. And now I've got that lovely panel that I can stick to the top there. Oh, Kim said just search Tombow sand eraser on Amazon. Awesome. Yeah, get yourselves one in your stash if you don't have one already, because they're really, really handy. And they're also an absolute godsend if you run classes as well, because it means people can go away with if they have a little splodge somewhere, they can go away with happy with a successful finished project. So always handy. So what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to give this a little bit of dimension. So there we see, there was my practice side, everybody, and then we have the finished one this way round. So I'm going to pop mine up on some dimensionals, I think, just to give this a little bit of something extra. And I don't have any to hand actually. It's tucked away. It's in a box with some other stuff on top of it, so I can't get it. But obviously you could wrap some ribbon around this as well. That would be absolutely lovely when you give this as a gift to somebody. So ultimately, when I do give this away, then I will take everything off the top of my ribbon box and I will pop it in. So I'm just going to do this. And then afterwards, if you like, I can show you a window method so that you can actually see inside the box and see what's in there. So it looks a bit, you know, looks a bit nice. It's just an alternative. Step it up a bit for those of you that might have some additional supplies and things at home. Okay, so I'm just gonna, what's that on there? I'm just gonna go anyway. So I'm just gonna line this up and hopefully you can probably see better than me whether it's square or not. I'm just gonna lay it down gently first of all and lift it up. Do you know, that's square enough. So there we have our finished handmade box, decorated, full of handmade cards. So how lovely is that? I think that's a really, really smashing gift, and I would love to receive this from somebody. So you could perhaps tie a ribbon around there. You could add a tag inside, because obviously the recipient could then re-gift this box to somebody. It's quite a decent sized box actually. You know, you could decorate it a bit differently. You could certainly get some socks in there for Father's Day, or you know, a couple of bars of his favourite chocolate or something like that, bottle of aftershave, you know, all sorts of bits of things in there, some garden bits and pieces, packets of seeds and things, whatever your dad might be into. So yeah, there's definitely things you can do. So that's the very, very simple way of making a box. Okay, so now I'm just going to repeat the lid, but this time we're going to make a window lid. So I need my trimmer again. And I also need my piece of cardstock that's thrown itself on the other side of my craft room. Hold on a moment. There we go. That was a good stretch. So I'm going to start off with exactly the same measurements. So the measurements for my lid were 7 by 9. Okay, so this is a nice, Molly, if you're still on, this is a little reminder for you at least of how to do the lid. Okay, so I'm going to cut it down 7 by 9. Okay. Oh, that was scoring it. So I've cut it to 7 by 9 again, and I'm going to score it exactly the same as I did before. So if you remember, for the lid, it was a 1 inch score, but we did it just a fly's eyelash shorter than the 1 inch. So I'm going up to my 1 inch here, but I literally cover my 1 inch mark and then I bring it back so I can see my 1 inch mark again. But that is literally all I do. It's the lighter blade because that's our score blade. So I'm going to score that on all 4 sides. So again, literally fly's eyelash shorter. Yeah, Baz has said, could you use a for you sentiment? Absolutely, Baz. Yeah. Off the top of your head, Baz, can you think of any Stampin' Up stamp sets that have got for you in? I can't think of one. I haven't got one in front of me, so I can't tell. Oh, Claire's joined. Hiya, Claire. Nice to see you. So what I'm going to do before we cut we're going to cut an aperture in this lid. I'm going to fold and burnish the score lines again, but I'm not going to bother doing any of the cutting yet. I'm just going to fold and burnish all 4 score lines. Okay. There we go. Now, anyone who owns a Big Shot will know that the Big Shot platform is 6 inches wide and our piece of cardstock is 7 inches wide that way, or 9 inches wide that way. Either way, it's not going to go through the opening of the machine. Okay, so I'm going to use these dies, which are called, I'm going to use this one. They are the Stitched Nested Labels dies. There's lots of them. They come in lots of different sizes. I've chosen the biggest one to make the aperture on the front of my card. Okay, so I've got my 4 score lines which frame the top of the box, and I want to line my die up so that it's roughly in the middle. I'm going to Janice, do flies use mascara? I don't know, Janice, Google it. Thank you, Kim. Yeah, 3D. I like doing simple 3D projects. I'm not one for doing. I really appreciate when people can do massive, big, fancy things, but it's just not for me. So I'm lining up my die, hopefully straight, so that it's going to be central on the top of my box. And I'm using some Scotch removable tape. You can use washi tape, you can use masking tape, but make sure you've detacked it a bit on your skin first, because you really don't want it to rip your project. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to tape the die on the inside of the window, because that's the bit that could potentially end up in the bin if it does end up damaged. Okay, so when we do die cutting, I will bring the die cutting machine over in a moment. It's basically like a mangle. So we have a base plate, we have a cutting plate. Yes, mine are an absolute mess, but that's okay. That's what they're there for. They do get like this, and they're actually a replaceable item. So they'll do you good for several years, especially if you're a sort of a hobby crafter and you're not running classes and things. But even me, as running classes and things and doing big events, I've had my Big Shot now for nearly 5 years, and this is only the 2nd set of plates I've got through, and I do a lot of die cutting. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to fold the top of the box in, okay, and actually it's going to be nowhere near the die cut edge, so if we want we can fold those sides under, and this is now going to make it narrow enough to go through the bed of our die cutting machine. Okay, so I knew by folding it that way that the edges of my card were not going to get damaged by the die, because the die is going to cut underneath here. So I can fold that round, and I can put the lid, the 2nd cutting plate on, and then I just need to bring over my Big Shot machine. Also, Baz has got says a good man stamp set has got a sentiment. It just happened. Thank you, Baz. So yeah, there we go. It's got a for you down there. This is a lovely one actually for guys. That'll be a keeper for me. Okay, so I'm going to bring over my embarrassingly dusty Big Shot. Apologies for that. And what we do is we push that into there, and then we slide it through. Okay, so I don't know if you can see the handle or not, but like I said, it's just like a mangle, and there are metal rollers inside here, and it applies pressure, and the pressure makes the metal die cut through the cardstock. So if I take all this out and move that out of the way, we can see now that we've cut a hole in the middle of that. And if my removable tape has been nice, it has, I've now got a piece. Now that I suppose we could use that for the label, couldn't we? We could definitely use that for the label to include if we wanted to. Okay, so I'm now going to put the lid of the box together. Or shall I stick the acetate on first? No, I'm going to put some acetate on. So if I now bring my cards over, you see, we're now going to have a box where we can see into the inside. But we don't want the lid completely open. So we can use some thin sheets of plastic to go in there. So if you bear with me, I'm just going to have a little rummage in my drawer. And of course I've got absolutely massive, oh, I might have some smaller pieces already cut. I have got some smaller pieces. So here I've got some acetate, or in Stampin' Up World it's called window sheet. And I just need to trim this down to fit inside my aperture. Now, if we remember all our measurements, the lid of the box was 5 by 7. So I'm going to cut this down to 4.5. So your blades will cut through the acetate, no problem, to 6 by 6.5. So the same size as we cut the white piece before, if you remember. So 6.5 is there. Don't know how well the screen's picking up the acetate, I'm not sure. So I've now got this piece of plastic film that I can stick inside here. Now the best thing for this really is going to be tape. You can stick it with the liquid glue, it just takes longer to dry. So I'm going to stick it with some tear and tape. So I'm literally going to stick it sort of near the aperture, the glue, because that's where I want it to stick down the most. I can even trim down the acetate a little bit if I want to once I've stuck it in place. So that's my tape. If you give it a good burnish with your fingers, it makes it easier to get the backing tape off. Now I'm okay because I've got sort of short nails to do this. However, if you have long nails or you get your nails done, it can be a bit more difficult. You can use this pokey tool to help lift up the backing tape off of your double-sided tape. Okay, so I'm now going to, so there's my shiny piece of acetate. I'm going to stick that down. And now I've made a box with a nice plastic film lid. Okay, so I'm going to go around. Do you remember we did the cutting and the trimming on all 4 corners? So we're going to do that again. Just realised I haven't looked at comments for ages. Let me just have a little peek to see if there's anything. Oh, Baz is just giving us lots of helpful tips on sentiment sets. Thank you, Baz, much appreciated. It's kind of handy really when you're doing a live. It would be kind of nice to have an assistant standing by to help and answer the questions. It's a bit difficult to watch what you're doing and keep an eye on the screen at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to go back in with my wet glue, and what I'm going to do this time is, this is how I would do it if I was doing it just for myself. I'd actually turn it over the right way. I'd put my glue on all 4 tabs, and then I would start to stick it together 1 tab at a time. Now I'm confident, because of the fly's eyelash measurements, technical term, that our box lid will fit beautifully. I don't think I burnished those sides very well, but never mind, it'll work. So I'm just coming up now, sticking those corners together. Okay, going round again. And to my last one. So it's got all those stuck on there. And then obviously you choose whichever of your cards that you'd like on the top. I think I quite like that one that's got all of the stamping on it. And then I'm going, my lid fits beautifully on my box. And I've now got a lovely gift box with a lid that I could tie up with ribbon. I could add a tag to. And if you wanted to, you've also created this tag. You could maybe use one of the smaller dies in the set to, because they kind of layer together. So the next size down would be that one. So you could maybe cut a white piece to mat on top of there, little bit of ribbon, job done. You've made a lovely sentiment piece. So that's me about done, everybody. So we made our lovely cards last week, and we've made a couple of different gift box ideas for this week. I'll hang on for a couple of minutes if anyone's got any particular questions about anything, or if anybody wants the measurements again. I'm happy to happy to tell you those, and I'll type them in actually to a post, because there's not many of them. It'll be easy enough to do. It's been really lovely crafting with you today. I hope you've all made some lovely projects. Remember, if you post your finished projects on the post in a little while, you can be in with the chance for winning the Subtle 3D embossing folder. It's a really great folder. Do you know what, actually, while we're on, no, I won't open this one because that'll be a bit rude. I have got a Subtle embossing folder handy. I'm just going to run a piece of cardstock through it so that you can see what it actually does. So, oh sorry, you're getting a right glare there, aren't you? Oh, glare, glare, glare. Let's put, sorry, I hadn't realised you were getting such a glare. Let me prop it up on a box. There we go, that's better. So we've got this plain, ordinary piece of cardstock, and I'm just going to run it through with the Subtle embossing folder, and it basically makes it look like linen paper. So something that's really nice to do, and I haven't got anything handy that I can run through. But if you do your stamping on it, on a piece of paper, and then run it through this, it looks like you've stamped on really lovely, nice linen card. I might have something I can run through, even though it's not sort of anything finished or fancy. But let me see what I can find. So now, I don't know how well. Let me see if I can bring some light into the. See if that will help. We've now got, from having a plain piece of card, we've now got a piece of card with some lovely texture on it. Really lovely texture it creates. Let me see if I can find something that's been stamped that I can run through. Oh, I've got a couple of things up here. So, right, I've got a couple of things up here I've been just playing with and colouring in. I'll just cut one of these out. So if we look initially, we've just got this very plain flat piece of cardstock. But if we run it through with our embossing folder, it just takes it up a level. It's really nice. Sorry if I'm shaking the camera. So I've now just got to get this right, so hopefully you can see something. Come on. I don't know how well this is showing up. So now we've transformed this piece into something that's got a really, really lovely texture on it. Come on, focus. Focus. Really lovely texture on it. I'm hoping you can see that somehow. Anyway, so that's the 3D embossing folder that I'm going to put in the prize draw this weekend. Oh, thank you, Jeanette. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, Molly. Oh, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Baz and Kim. It's really nice of you to join me. Thanks, everybody. So really look forward to seeing all your projects. And yeah, kind of happy crafting. Have a great weekend. And I'm sure I'll be doing another Facebook Live in the not too distant future once I've come up with an idea for a project. Okay, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.